Hello and welcome back to the channel. I first of all, I would like to make a couple of corrections and apologies from my video last time. I always just upload my videos, and I never edit them or check them before I do it, and it's kind of bombs away, light touch paper and retire. And there were a couple of errors in there, and I think on a scale of, if I were doing a scale of 1 to 10, they're pretty high up on the Richter scale of that measure. The first one was when I was talking about the rather somber subject of Auschwitz. The sister camp that I referred to was Belsen, and obviously it's not Belsen, it's Birkenau. And I've just been there, and I should have remembered it, but I must have had Belsen in my head. Belsen's in Lower Saxony. It's probably about 100 miles away. It's actually inside East, well, former East Germany, now Germany. So apologies for that. I just didn't pick up on it when I was doing my thing. The other one was one of my subscribers, and one of the people that had given me inspiration for this channel, Jason Jacobson. I refer to him as Jacob Jacobson, and I do apologize. I didn't mean to do that. It was, I think, what you call a senior moment. Now you should go and see I was going to say Jason's channel. The Joy of Wargaming and Character NPC. Now Character NPC doesn't seem to be doing any more AD&D stuff. He seems to be like a fellow board gamer type person, so I saw one of his latest videos to do with a board game. But I would go and see and go over and view Jason's channel. He very kindly gave me a shout out a few weeks ago, and I want to do the same as well. And I've actually figured out how to do shout outs, putting your address in, so it will appear in. I'm going to sound like a YouTuber now. The address will appear in the description to this video, and I actually embedded it with an apology for both items in my previous video, so that's in that description. So that out the way, all I can say is I'm a bit sorry for doing that, but as I said, a couple of senior moments. The other thing that I did notice that we hadn't done was day 7. We hadn't done a weather check, so I keep forgetting weather checks. And I know if you look at, the only thing that's really going to impact us, certainly when we're out and adventuring in the wilderness, etc., will be things like these are 1 or 2 in these months. Strong winds won't. Fine. So let's just see for interest what we get. Oh wow! So we get rain. Now for rain after a phase, for example morning, all land movement not on paved roads is reduced by 1/3, and rivers become unfordable. Now remember, with this mechanic, we diced at the start of the day to find out the potential weather. So this will only happen if potential weather will actually occur if a 1 is rolled and ceases if a 6 is thrown. So let's just say it's raining today, because I don't really want to go through. It would be pertinent, say we were adventuring outdoors, but we're in Marchton. It's a miserable. It's just, it's Holy Day. Everybody maybe scuttling around trying to get into the church, cramming in. The lists are getting a bit soggy and damp. everybody's feeling a bit kind of miserable. It's cold as well. March in Scotland is a cold. We're talking about this similar kind of climate to what I've got in my country. Although today is beautiful. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's first day of spring as well, so that kind of kicks that theory into touch. But generally, March is pretty cold month. Okay, so that's out of the way, and I can put that in. I can actually put rain as my weather in my planner. The other thing was the decision on the sword, and I think I'll leave that to the Monday, the day 8, and I've been having a bit of a think about that. I know I said that Dagobert was quite against holding on to the sword, but Lindris is pretty clear. If we look at I always like looking at this alignment thing and just kind of figuring out what is the relationship between all the different and you've got this amazing diagram. Where is it? Where is the alignment? Oh, here it is. Yes. Now I remember basic D&D. They just had law, chaos, neutral. Did they? Yeah, it was just law and chaos and neutral. Whereas AD&D made it all really quite granular. So Lindris sits here, and the sword sits here. So the fit is okay. He's not too happy about the fact that it can. Maybe it's got rather, and chaotic neutral is this kind of in an extreme, it's quite nihilistic. But probably in a more kind of toned down version, it's just a bit wild. It's probably like the bad boy that was in town and that sort of thing. It could be like a lovable rogue, really. I think more of the chaotic goods like that, like a kind of hand sort of figure. And then Tristan's neutral good. So he has to go through this to get to chaotic neutral. So it's almost like if you can tick off the ones in common. So chaotic, good to neutral. That's not too much of a difference. And then neutral to neutral's okay, and good isn't a fit. So yes, so it must be neutral to chaotic and good to neutral, because that's the way that works. Yes. So that actually means that this is right. It's probably for Tristan, it's not a great blade to carry. It's probably got some, that's how I want these blades to work. They have a kind of, just at maybe odd moments, they kind of maybe wobble in your hand or something like that. And if you had to say a chaotic evil blade, all of them would be kind of, laboring with this weapon. It's maybe a beautiful sword, dark obsidian type thing, and with these strange runes, a bit like a Stormbringer, but it's got some. It has its own kind of life, and it would work against someone that was good or lawful. Okay, so I think what I want to do is maybe Lindris is going to put a case forward. Well, let's not be too hasty here. Why don't we use this sword in some of our adventuring? And I think they've had a bit of downtime now. They've been the last day they were adventuring was the was it the Thursday or was it the Friday? I'm trying to remember. I'll get my diary out. I think it was the Thursday that they were out and about. Yeah, here we go. Here's our summary. Adventure. It was the Friday. So they've had Saturday, and it's Sunday now. And I think as a party, they've got a bit of a taste for the adventuring now. They're kind of they've broken themselves in this week, and I think that it's almost like a bit of an addiction now. They got that kind of adrenaline rush from Dunmorna. You know, all these sort of spiders jumping out and skeletons. Maybe not the skeletons. They were a bit more straightforward, but it was still quite a frightening encounter. And I think all these encounters have had, you know, they had their little twists and whatever. And I think the characters have got a bit of a taste for that, so they might be champing at the bit. You know, after a kind of dull holy day, they might think, you know, I'm really quite looking forward to maybe venturing back out. You know, if nothing else comes up, back to Dunmorna. So I think that's the fallback, and I think that's what you usually use your starting dungeon for. It's always a place to go if there's nothing else to do and you want to adventure. And remember, there was a few doors that we hadn't gone through and a few places to explore. And also I had that kind of, again, another kind of senior moment with my levels. So there's a whole level above level 1 for us to explore as well, and we could flesh that out. Okay, right. The main subject of today is to showcase. When I say showcase, give you an overview of my churn and in mechanic. Now, this isn't. It's like all the things I do on this channel. You know, I'm not trying to jazz it up or anything. Maybe the name sounds a bit grand, but to be quite honest, all this is, I don't want to get your expectations up that you think, oh my goodness, this is going to be an amazing, you know, a bit like you get this Mythic, I think, which is a solo book that helps solo players play other games, and you can use it on anything. I could use it on AD&D, I suppose. I think, but it really goes to town. It's got a big thick tome, I believe, and it's got lots of charts and tables, and it has probabilities of this, and it has oracles and all this kind of, and to me that sounds a weird, you know, I don't want to knock it because I bet it is fantastic, and people that are converted to it, you know, that's great. But I think it's almost like you have to learn another game to play a game. Whereas with AD&D, all I have to do is maybe just come up with some very simple, almost tweaks and little things, little mini tables that are quite understandable and use the same kind of spirit to give me that sort of experience. And I've had quite a good sort of experience so far. I might have got something better in Mythic, I just don't know. I haven't tried it. So I can't criticize it really. But I like what I'm doing. So and that's the whole purpose of this channel, is to show you how I approach it. How, you know, if we go do the old 1979 trick again, Mythic wasn't invented then. So that's my get out. I'm just going on what probably my brain would have been thinking at the time, with the benefit of all my life experience as well, and just how the kind of layers of, I was going to say layers of common sense, but you would hope that is the case. But you know, I've obviously had a lot of life experience now, and maybe that's what's seeping into these amendments and rules now, that I'm not quite the 14 or 15-year-old adolescent that might not be maybe as subtle in how to interpret things. I've got a bit more experience of how things go. Okay, I think the best thing to do is just to go through some of these mechanics and give you a kind of an illustration of how we're going to do it. And in fact, we'll actually set up the week's matrix. That's the best thing to do. But I'll just give you a quick rundown of what this mechanic's all about. Now, I call it the churn factor and in mechanics. And this, in a nutshell, is to simulate weekly life in the starting inn and to keep track of all the emerging events and flow of individuals around the player characters. Follow this process. So that sounds like if you do this, everything will be fine. Yes, well, yes and no. This it's really just a fancy. It's not even a fancy. It's a scheduling system. It just maps out the week, and I've got certain activities that I've managed to distill that are key to the functioning of your starting in. It is performed on Sunday, day 7, and it charts out the entire week in advance. And so, for the solo gamer, it means all that is required is interpretation of the scheduled occurrence when the specific day is reached. So, we will have all 7 days scheduled out. If there's an arrival, say I have generated on day 3, when it comes to day 3, bang, we work out what the arrival's all about, who it is and what their background is, and maybe have an interaction possibility with our player characters. It's as simple as that. So I've distilled 4 aspects, and actually I might actually also have, there are residents as well, and I've got a separate chapter on them, paragraph. So there's probably 5 aspects, but 4 main kind of moving cogs. Residents are kind of standing data there, already there, embedded in the inn. So you need to determine 4 aspects. There's arrivals, there's departures, there's events, and the threads. And I'll come to explain each of those. Some of them are obvious what they are, but a few, like threads, might just need a bit more explanation, so that it's easy to understand what they are and what the context is in the setting. As a limitation, the inn has a maximum level of 20 occupants and a minimum of 10. Now, I've just put this arbitrary number just to give us something that we can handle. It's not too many, and it's hopefully not too few. These represent prominent and important NPCs which we track individually and not the crowd churn. So this is our famous, it's not the 60 other people that are there that are all kind of like the labourers and the peasants and whoever. These are the actors, not the extras. They are the important people that are going to interact with our player characters. The median position is 12 occupants, which represents a neutral point for modifiers. So once we reach 12 in the inn, that is almost neutral, and we won't get any adjustments to our modifiers. For arrivals, these are determined using a D100 roll, and here we are, here's the table, and it goes from none, 81 to 100, up to 5 arrivals in a week. Modifiers. If the inn already has over 12 occupants, add 10%, so that's going to push it up to less people arriving. The occupants amount to 15 plus 20, so if it's getting fuller, there's less people that can come in. Now this might sound a bit arbitrary, but I think it's just the only way to just manage. We've got to be kind of abstract here. We can't really kind of say, well, actually, 10 turn up. Maybe in normal life, you would get, like in a hotel, you'd get a big busload of people turn up and say, have you got any room? That haven't been scheduled, or people coming in off the street, that type of thing, and it might already have full occupancy. However, I'm just doing it based on just how to manage the Green Dragon, and say, well, in abstract terms, I'm never going to have more than 20, and I'm never going to have less than 10, and I will kind of manipulate the numbers to get between those two, and 12 is the ideal occupancy. So anything above that, I will have negative modifiers. In this case, these are positives, because the higher it is, the less people arriving. The occupants amount to 18 plus 30, so that really pushes it up. And if we do have 18 plus, you'll get a maximum of 2 arrivals. So that should almost like by default push down the numbers arriving. If it's a winter month, plus 10%. So I think in our game world, that's January, December, or is it, no, it's January, February in our weather thing. Check if these are adventurers, important NPCs, or patrons. So there's a little table that I've got on here, which says roll the d6, and this is the arrival type. 1 is a patron, and remember we had a patron table for the inn when we generated that many videos ago. We also have 2 to 3 and an NPC, so check this subtable, and I've created a specific subtable for NPCs. Now these are people that are important enough to warrant their own category, really. So a patron will provide, as per the classic traveller patron, they are the provider of missions, and the ones that I would have in my adventure generator that I showed a few videos ago. But an NPC is just doing general business, and it's really just of interest to see how they interact with us. We had an NPC of official, which was Halas, and he had quite a lot of interesting quirks and whatever, and he wasn't a patron. So I'm hoping that the NPCs will, just looking at who they are, they're quite, I'll come back to that. I'll just explain a few of the other things. So we've got 3 categories. We've got patrons, NPCs, and majority, I'm saying, will be adventurers coming here, because the Green Dragon has become a place that is not renowned, but it is known as a safe haven for adventurers. Fredegar has a great reputation as a superb landlord, keeping a very safe and protected environment in what would be classified as a very hostile area. So adventurers are kind of almost primed to come to the Green Dragon, and they form the majority under Seward's directions and his encouragement to come to this area and go out and do what adventurers do, which is explore and delve and slay monsters. And that's exactly what Seward wants. And also pay all the tax that they get from all the treasure that they extract from the region. Now, we also, when it comes to determining who these arrivals are, we perform a background check to determine their origins as local, in the polity, or foreign. So 1's local, 1 to 2 is kingdom, and 4 is foreign. And again, with the local origin, it will only be considered if appropriate, otherwise it will be the kingdom. Adventurers are never locals. Okay, so that's stated in black and white. For every arrival, you generate a chance of interaction that evening for new arrivals. So remember the interaction mechanic that we had for starting in for the first night. We will do an interaction test or check for any of the arrivals to see if the PCs basically interact with these people, come into contact, and that would be interesting. So the idea is the arrivals are creating the kind of input into the cauldron. They are the ingredients that are being added. They have interesting backstories. We've already generated a lot of pretty interesting NPCs already, so I'm hoping that this will provide the more of the same. Lots of nice ingredients. Now, just from an example, the NPC table with a D12, we've got people like merchants, pilgrims, the official, a mercenary, a sage scholar student, foreigner, exile, fugitive. That would have an interesting backstory. A nobleman, the entertainer, might be another entertainer that isn't specifically one that's taken on by the inn. An explorer, a cartographer, a mapper. That might be an interesting guy to get to know. They might be quite useful if we have to go and explore something, because they can do some detailed mapping and help with the help with the specific mapping of an individual subhex. A miner, a gambler, a wanderer, an agent. Now the agent could be, that's open to anything really. Is he an agent of the dark forces, or is he an agent of the king, or is he an agent of the church, or you tell me. It's kind of spy, sort of James Bond sort of person. Now, so that's arrivals. How about departures? So I think with departures, I've got a much more, if you thought that was abstract, this is even more abstract. The departures, these are calculating using a more general mechanic of rolling 1d4 to indicate the number of potential departures per week. So I've got potential departures. Results are modified to adhere to the in minimum level restriction, which is based on the level at the start of the week. So before these arrivals are taken into account of, we base the departure check on the pre-arrival position. So say we've already got 12 people in the inn, we get 2 arrivals, we don't count 14 as being the position for the departures, we count 12 because it's pre-arrivals. I know that I'm throwing numbers around and it might be quite difficult to visualize it without maybe seeing it in paper, and that's what I'm going to do next when I take it to a big sheet and map it out. Now, specific departures will be determined using a judgmental selection of levers based on the pool of current residents. Ooh, what does that mean? It basically means I will look at all the residents and I will gauge who are the likely ones that would be wanting to leave. And I know that sounds a bit, it's a bit iffy when it comes to solo, but I have a get out that I will present on the next page, which is select randomly or weight the selection to narrow down the individuals leaving. So if we know who our residents are, I can weight it, and also last resort I just select randomly. And say Baldo's going, I don't want Baldo to leave, but if I can't work out a weighting on the other ones and I roll a dice and Baldo's going to leave, he leaves, and that's it, end of story. So it's that is the fallback. But as you see, the departures is a bit more esoteric. Is maybe the word for that. Now, an interesting one that we've been kind of simulating already in the Green Dragon, where we do our kind of little check at the end of every night, or maybe not at the end of it, in the evening. And I have just viewed that as being a chance of having an interaction with one of the residents. However, I've now expanded events to some categories, and I think this is something that you could say, well, you're not really being Advanced Dungeons and Dragons in this. I would maybe argue that I'm trying to use the spirit of AD&D to describe the type of events that will be happening in the end, and these are just mainly aids to say, well, guess what? There's an event coming up. Lord Seawood wants a tournament, or something. It's that type of thing. It's not exactly saying, I'm not prescribing something. I'm just saying that these things are maybe going to happen or not, and then it's really down to interpretation. It's not really a rule. It's just a kind of aid to the solo experience. It's probably better if I just showed you, and you can take it away and have a think about it yourselves. And I don't have I have the high level event categories with a description of what they are, but I don't have already done the detailed breakdown. because for each of these categories, I would have a subtable that would have maybe 10 to 20, a bit like, in fact, one of them is called the external events table. And I would use that settlement events table that I used way back at the start, and I'll show you that when it comes to that. But let me just run through these categories first. So events are checked for daily as we progress through the week. So I'm not going to schedule these out. I just check every day as we progress, and are composed of 6 categories that are further broken down into individual examples in the events table. As the campaign develops, populate free slots in the table with campaign-specific events as generated through play. Now, my understanding of that would be that I have got subtables for each of these, and I might have some free slots in it, and I will start populating them with things that start happening in the campaign. So, for example, say the brigands become a force, and we want to try and represent them more in the happenings, as an event. I can start plugging brigand stuff in. Say Mad Dougal has decided he wants to steal some magic potion or something from Marchton, and he sends some infiltrators in to go to Thudebert's Emporium and break in and get this potion. That is that type of thing. Maybe not all that fully described, but that sort of intervention that I can weight something a bit more based on local events and circumstances. So events don't necessarily occur immediately, but can signal the start of an extended or ongoing experience. So say one of the things is local happenings, and that is, say we have a tournament, like there's an archery tournament. Maybe that we get to know that there's going to be a tournament, and I could just schedule that and say, well, that's going to be done on this Saturday. But the event might have come up in, say, Monday, but it's like being signposted, and the characters are made aware of it. So it doesn't necessarily just have to go bang on that, immediately. It might be a slow burn type event that you can say, well, actually, we've found out there's going to be an archery tournament on Saturday. We're going to have to get our arrows out and do a bit of practice. It's that type of thing. So it's very flexible. I don't want anything that's too rigid and straitjacketed. So let's have a look at some of these categories. So we roll a d6 every day, and there is actually I should have said there is a 1 in 6 chance that I haven't actually put that in my text. I think when I was doing my rules, a roll of 1. I thought I'd actually put it in my text. No, it doesn't appear to be there. It's not in. No. That is an omission on that. I should have had another bullet just saying it's checked. There's a 1 in 6 chance when we do an event check that one of these things will be triggered, and then we roll a d6, and depending on what the d6 is, the first one is an interaction. So this covers friction, disputes, and alliance development by randomly selecting residents for involvement in these activities. So we'll have a list of all the residents. We'll have on the subtable, it will say there's a fight breaks out between 2 residents, or there's kind of someone in a party is looking to join another party. It's that type of thing, and we'll randomly select who we want to do, and then we'll just play that out, or not, as the case may be. And then the other one is rumours, and these can be expanded upon by using the adventure generator with a chance this event spawns a patron or an adventure. Now, I thought this is a good way to kickstart. Say we don't have any patrons, and there's nothing coming up. if we have a chance coming through of a rumour, we might be able to seed, using discretion, another mission for the characters to pick up. And I haven't really utilised that in a game yet, so I'd be interested just to see how that pans out. But I think, you know, we might have loads of patrons. It's just that the probabilities is going to be quite low. And if we go through a kind of lean patch, it may be nice to have a chance that we get a rumour of a place of mystery that we can go and explore with a kind of ready-made adventure through the adventure generator of where it is and what it is. And I showed you that a few videos ago, so I'll probably bring that back out again when we have these, you know, when we have a patron and when we have this rumour. So that's number 2 on the list. Number 3 is a specific incident. These are events which affect the characters, such as being summoned to see the Lord, crossing the guard, or subject to theft, etc. So very specific things that are affecting our player characters and not the residents. So this is a kind of, you know, you see, it kind of like if you're playing Monopoly, it's opportunity. What's it called? Opportunity. I was going to say opportunity. No, it's one of the cards that kind of gives you either a good outcome or a bad outcome. It can be something, and then it's going to specifically affect you. So that would be that's going to be an interesting subtable, and I can keep on expanding and expanding it. 4 is local happenings. So this is something that I touched on already. Something which involves the local population to a varying degree, such as tournaments, festivals, religious days, in-game nights, etc. So that adds a bit of colour. I'll gauge how much of the local population is involved in it. I could roll a 1d10. So say there's a tournament, I roll a 1d10. If it's a 10, everybody is going crazy about it and they want to go out and see it. If it's a 1, it's a very select tournament. Maybe it's a jousting thing and there's hardly anybody coming along, just some nobles. It's that type of thing. And then 5, external events. So you consult the settlement events table and gauge the magnitude of the event using our famous 1d10 scale. So remember the thing that produced the brigands at the start of the when we were generating our settlement, we had a local events table here, and it had all these fine events that were things like plague and famine, corruption. You know, these are all quite titanic. Now, I'm not expecting us to suddenly have, oh my goodness, we have war or something. This event in the Green Dragon will be, say we roll internal class strife revolution. I'm not saying that suddenly a revolution breaks out in the Green Dragon. All the peasants and the workers go, oh, we've had enough. That Lord Seward, he's awful. He keeps on doing things that are just annoying us, and we're really angry, and we want to have a revolution. They're not going to do that. Maybe we'd roll a 1 to 10, and on a 10, maybe there's some agitation and there's something to worry about. But on a 1, it's maybe just rumors of something, just something that we can add to the color of the setting, and say, maybe there are some things going on. Who knows what's causing that? Is something, you know, we've got that chaotic good subgroup. Are they stirring up trouble? You know, sort of, you know, the fact that they're chaotic. You know, it's that type of stuff. And I will tone down what are called almost earth-shattering events, which are big things that are affecting the entire settlement at the start, and set the tone to more manageable, you know, something like corruption or corrupt official. That might just mean that, you know, that similar to what we have with Hallis, with the guard, the chap that's in charge of the guard, he's being well, he's done for effectively murder, I think, but maybe there's a bit of corruption going on, and someone's getting their knuckles rapped, or there's some kind of judicial review or something. You kind of get the drift. It's not something that's going to be the end of the world type thing. It's not going to be famine and plague and all that type of stuff. It's going to be maybe there's a small outbreak of a disease, and we can just randomly do that, and that's what the subtable will say. And then finally, this was something that when we were talking about the corruption corruption check, I said I would seed it in my in mechanic, and this is where it pops up. So corruption factor checks, chance of corruption spawning in a resident NPC. So the subtable will say, in your next, or maybe as an example, in your next NPC interaction, there is, I say, a 1 in 10 chance that they are corrupted, and they have one of those 4 awful, they don't want to be the psychopath, the pathological person, but there is a chance that they have this maybe they're obsessed with power or wealth, and they're greedy, or they're just fanatics in their cause, and they pretend to be lawful neutral, but they're actually lawful evil or something like that. Okay, so that's the events, and they get determined every day. The last thing, well, maybe the second last thing that I want to do as a category are threads. And the threads were things like, threads represent the ongoing storylines or events with a life cycle requiring tracking. So we list all the existing and new threads and select one to progress using judgment, or optionally using a random choice. So say we've got Hallis and the captain of the guard. We've got the brigand type stuff and their incursions. So we could maybe list them out and say, well, actually, the Hallis thing needs to come to a conclusion, and I know about that, so I would override it and say, well, that's going to be concluded, and we can roll a dice and say, well, it's going to be concluded on Wednesday, that type of thing. Or we actually just do a random thing based on, say, we have 4 threads, and we say, well, actually, I'm not sure which one we want to progress, but let's roll a dice, and oh, yes, the brigands, so let's push the brigands on and think about an aspect of that story that we want to bring in to this sort of campaign. But not at, I think at every stage, what we're not trying to do is basically dictate an event or a thread on the game itself. All we want to do is introduce the opportunity to start rolling on it and maybe interact and generate some randomness influenced by those things. And finally, we'll have residents. So for existing residents, perform a general check of their activity over the course of the week. Make a note in the planner. So I don't want to go to town on this, and I did say yesterday that the purpose of this is really just to get us up and running. So it's baby steps, and it might sound as though we're being control freaks here, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, it's just going to sound like an administrative nightmare. It's not. And when you see it down on paper, it's very simple, and it would take you just maybe 10-15 minutes to actually set up and maintain, and then you've got it there in front of you. And you can use it for all other things. You have all the residents listed. You could roll a dice against them, and you can randomly select. So it has many spin-offs that by being organised. Adventurers will be involved in party activity, i.e. adventuring, 1 to 6 on a D10, and personal activity on a 7 to 10. So each of our adventurers, that'd be like Baldur as well, and some of the other NPCs that we bumped into in Party B, and we could roll a dice, and then parties need at least 2 adventurers. So say only one of them went adventuring, we'd have to just say default, oh, well, actually, none of them are going to do adventuring. And then what we do is If it is a personal activity, which is 7 to 10, we can put down what they're doing all week. So they're either doing class training or they're healing and recovery. We could do a little story about how that has happened. Maybe they've had an accident, or maybe they've been involved in a delve that's involved some combat. And then other downtime activity and recreation. And I had that list of downtime activity. And we can either select from that or just randomize it and just select what they're doing. And then there's recreation. There's always a fallback. They're just in there having, carousing and gambling and doing all the sort of thing that adventurers do most of the time. Okay, and then other NPCs will always be going about their business and professional duties. So all the ones that are on this table, these guys will be doing their business. They won't be doing the adventuring stuff or class training or healing or recovery. They'll just be doing their business all the time. Now this is the week matrix, and this just summarizes where we've got to. The week matrix have the results of these steps scheduled out on a week matrix. The determination of which day arrivals and departures are mapped to is performed using a D8. So D8 will say if it's a 1, they're coming on a Monday. If it's a 2, it's a Tuesday, etc., etc. If you get an 8, it can be placed at the solo player's discretion. We can say, we've got all these arrivals, later on in the week. It'd be quite interesting if we could get an arrival at the start of the week. I mean, put that in. It's not designed to. I don't want to game the system. I just want to maybe have some. This is saying we've got a wee bit of influence on it, and if we don't like it, we'll just do it randomly again. We'll just re-roll and hope we don't get an 8 again. Right. The other thing we can do is Rowena's stint with us, unfortunately, is over, and we are due for a new entertainer. So we will roll on that little sub table for our entertainer next time, and I will get that little table out, and we will make a note of the entertainer and think of a good name for them, and really kind of what their act is. Whether they major on heroic poetry or maybe it's they get the old guitar out, or it's whatever, or lute. I think it's lute. And then the staff members. Now remember old Fredegar and Martha and Seymour. Now I don't want them to not be in the mix. Now Fredegar is always good because whenever the characters come back, they have a nice little interaction with him, and he says, "How have you got on?" And it's always very kind of, it's good fun having a bit of a chat to Fredegar. It's almost like a kind of unwind with Fredegar type moment, and I want to continue that, but also I want to add in maybe just something of a bit of interest. So staff members are also listed, and they ordinarily perform their duties, but schedule a chance of another action. So there's a 1 in 6 chance. So say we have Fredegar, Martha and Seymour listed. I'll roll a dice, and if I get a 1 against any of them, I will schedule something happens or they are involved in during the week. And when we come to that, I'll trigger it. And maybe we have Seymour going berserk, throwing everybody out. You say, I've had enough of this. This Fredegar is always on my case, which is completely out. That's maybe not a very good example. That would be completely out, because Fredegar's a great landlord. But say Seymour gets involved in a scuffle, and it really becomes quite serious. It's that type of stuff. Okay, right. I have spoken enough. Let us, if we have the time. I see we've done about 50 minutes, so we've probably got another 10 minutes just to start scheduling this out. Now, in my old audit days, when I was training to be a chartered accountant, I used this paper, and this is called 15-column paper. And you put your client and you head up what it is, whether it's assets or liabilities or purchasing, and then you schedule out big analysis of stuff. If we didn't have spreadsheets or anything like that, so this was like all really kind of pre-spreadsheet, pre-Excel. You know, we didn't know what that was. We didn't use any computers. It was all done longhand. And I have still got some paper, and I'm going to use this auditing paper, counting paper, to do the green dragon, and do it justice. So what we need to do, I will get rid of my little dice tray just now. I'll probably bring it back when we need to make some rolls. Make sure that that is in camera shot. I will put the green dragon in. The week matrix. And it's weeks 2 and 3. And let's underline that and just be quite pedantic. When we were auditing, I don't want to give you audit stories because that's really boring, but the protocol was that you always use a black pen and you underlined in red all the time. So I have already broken protocol, but I want to do it in pencil so that I can manipulate it. Now, let us do this column here. This row will be our headers, and we will have a resident here, and then we will have the details of the resident, and then we will have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday. And this will be, I think that's the 8th, we're up to the 8th of March, the 9th of March, the 10th of March, the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th. And you see I've got more columns here, another 7, so I can do the next week. So this is week 1, or week 2, sorry, because we've already done week 1. You know, all these videos, I suppose a lot of the videos that I've done have been world building and setting up characters and stuff. And you know, when it comes to adventuring, I think I've done about, I think they've done Morna stuff, maybe 12, which actually is quite a lot. You know, it's probably, if you take on average, that my videos are between, say, 50 minutes and an hour. Yeah, that's quite a lot of time that we have actually done adventuring. But it took us a long time to get going. And I think I'm quite keen to get, you know, so these type of interludes where we're doing this type of stuff, it's really just to show you what the support model is. And if this is ticking over nicely, we don't have anything to worry about, because say our characters come back, they go out on Monday, and they come back, you know, we don't have to think, oh my, I'm gonna have to roll this and stuff. And you know, I'll have like an arrival scheduled, so when they come back, they might have an interaction with the arrival that's scheduled that day. So that is the plan. And let us do, we'll have a little bit of space here. We will list our player characters here. So we've got Dagobert, we've got Lindris, and we've got Tristan. And Dagobert is a cleric. Yeah, we don't have to put this, but I find it quite useful. Fighter magic user and a fighter thief. And they would be classified, we called them the original title of Party A. So I'll just put a little A there just now. Okay. Now we have Hallas, the investigator, and we will put him here. Hallas, the investigator. And he's an NPC. We haven't actually determined what he is. And we assume that he's a fighter, but he came up as official, so to me he's an NPC until further notice. And then we have Baldur, our old friend Baldur. Now, remember we had a bit of a... there was something about Baldur that we didn't really kind of gel with. And now that with the hindsight, we saw that he worked out his alignment was chaotic neutral. And, if you think of what Dagobert is, he's lawful neutral. He's polar opposite, and he probably got the vibe that he was dealing with someone that he didn't really like too much. And he just couldn't disguise maybe his ideological opposition to that. And he's a fighter thief again. So it's sometimes the dice after the event confirm the character, or whatever we discover of the person, it confirms. I think that's called confirmation bias, which I am using quite a lot in this game. And then we have Malord Pathfinder, and he is a druid. And then we have Adalind, and she's a magic user. And we have Tibbet, Father Tibbet. I call him Father Tibbet, he might not be. He's the cleric of Ithrics. And we have Clothar, who is another druid. And what are the chances of having two druids in a party? Yes, that's so they are party B. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 residents just now. So we're under the 10. So we can't really have any departures just now because we're not at capacity. What we do as the first process is we will go through this checklist. And the first thing to do is determine the number of arrivals that we're going to have. So let's look at the modifiers. Inn already has over 12 occupants. No. The occupants amount to 15 plus. No. 18 plus. No. Winter month. No. Let's just do a straight D100 roll. So we get our dice tray out. I get my percentage dice. We roll. We get that is that a 90? Yeah, 90, 99. Well. That means none. So there's no arrivals. I keep on having a double take with this because I'm not used to this type of dice. Then it's got the kind of, especially when 0 comes up. I don't know, there's just something about it. I just can't quite. It takes me a few seconds just to, it's that delay. It's like being on a satellite phone or something like that. It's just a bit of delay. So that's a bit disappointing because we're not going to have any arrivals. In that case, we won't have any departures too because we are. So if we had arrivals, I would have determined who they were on this. They would be either a patron, an NPC, or more adventurous. But the dice have spoken and said, no, today we are not. This week, and that means that there's none of this off chance there's going to be someone popping in. This is what the gods have said and stated. They've mapped out the Green Dragon's destiny for a whole week, and they've said, this is it, set in stone. There will be no arrivals in the Green Dragon. That's what Bane's saying this week. You're going to have to create your own adventure. Right, I will have something down here called event check, and we can schedule in what the event is that when we come to it. So when we come to tomorrow, I'll roll a 1d6, and on a 1 and 6, I have an event, and then I can roll what it is, what subtable to use. And then I'll have a thread selected, so I will go through the threads, and then I'll schedule in when that thread is going to either start or finish, or what the progress is, and I can slot it into whatever day that I'm talking about. I will have the entertainment defined. Let's have a look at our... Now, it might seem a bit trivial going on about the entertainers and stuff, but you know, when you think of it, it has added quite a bit of colour to the, you know, the fact that we would miss Rowena. We're going to miss Rowena. She's provided a lot of, as I say, colour, and that's the whole point of the starting in generation, was to just give us a bit of you know, all this type of stuff, where we're talking the innkeeper and his wife, and getting his children, and selecting the name of the place, and you know, the green dragon and all that sort of stuff. That was quite a good fun process, I think. So let's roll a d4 and see what we get. That's a 1. So, so it's a troubadour or a minstrel. A wandering entertainers, playing music and singing stories. Isn't that nice? So it sounds as though there's more than one. So let's roll a d4 again to see how many we get. It might be like a little band of troubadours and minstrels running. Oh, there's 4 of them. My goodness. So it's quite a little group. So troubadours, I think you can see that. Troubadours. So that looks interesting, isn't it? Troubadours times 4. And then we will list, finally, we will list Fredigar. And this is where we do the staff thing, where we do a little check and see more. And for the staff thing, we said, what did we say? Staff members are also listed, and they ordinarily perform their duties, but schedule a chance of another action, a 1 in 6 chance. So we will have Fredigar first, 1 in 6. So he's all right. He's just going to do his work all week. We have Martha. She's all right, and Seymour. So nothing. Okay. So that only leaves deciding what our residents are going to be doing. We don't include the player characters in this because we are in control of them. They do their own stuff. But for the residents, there we go. For existing residents, perform a general check of their activity over the course of the week. Make a note on the planner. I will do that. Adventurers will be involved in party activity, i.e. adventuring, 1 to 6 on D10, and personal activity on a 7 to 10. Okay, so let's do, we will do a quick check, a high level check of what Baldor's up to, whether he's a party guy, party person, or is he doing something personal. So Baldor is a personal. So I would do, I will have I there, individual. So that's the leader of the party doing something on his own. So that's interesting. And then, and Malar, he's doing something. He's doing something on his own too, or an individual activity. And then Adeline, what's Adeline? Oh my goodness, they're all, maybe they've all fallen out. And they think, oh, we don't really, we're sick and tired of the sight of you all. We're just going to do our own thing. Oh my goodness, Tibbet, he's doing something as well. They really are freaky dice today. And then finally, You saw it here. They're all doing something completely individual. Right. Okay. I don't quite know what to say on that. Right. Let's see what they're doing. We'll do a d6. So Baldor, who is the leader of the party, or self-proclaimed leader of this party, he is doing class training. So he's train. And I can put it into the Monday thing because it goes the whole week. So he's training all week. Malor he's healing and recovering. So he must have had a nasty. So we can go into maybe what's going on there and explore it. So it's a bit like character generation and Traveller. You get a result and you have to think, I'm very close to maybe the survival role, and I have to think, well, I have to think of a little story about that and how that happened, and maybe think, oh, there's a very close, got a nasty wound or something. So that's the sort of thing that we can explore a bit more there, and it's all down on paper here, so we can make some nice notes on it and whatever. Adelind is a 2. Well, she's training too, so now Adelind is interesting because she might want to train with Kayla, who is the magic user here. Yeah. I was thinking for magic user training, maybe Kayla is the person that you have to go to, and maybe Kayla isn't such a frightening thing. I've had a bit of a think about Kayla, and I think the way that she was kind of hammed up a bit, which was good because she was quite an amazing NPC to come across, but she might be a bit more down to earth and just as part of a team that Lord Seaward's got. She's one of the cogs, and she has to act as the magic user of the area, so she probably does have some apprentices, and even like Lindris might go. Jasper put in a good word with her. It's just the thing about the age stuff. Maybe she is. When I said youthful, maybe she's look like she's in her mid-20s. That she's so radiant and beautiful that it just looks as though she's much younger. And the age drop, maybe she's only taken like 1 potion of longevity, and it's had maximum effect, and it's reduced her age by 12 years. And she's always been beautiful, and it just kind of enhanced her. I don't know. I don't think there's maybe anything untoward about her. She's cruel, which isn't great, but that's the character quirk. Right, Tibbert. Let's do it. What is he training with the clerics of Ithrix? Yes, he is. He's training too. All right, so it looks as though this little party has done something, and they've come back after maybe last week when all our characters were going down the Lost Palace of Dunmona. Maybe they've been doing something else. So that's interesting, because that might plant something. What have they been doing? Have they been going down Dunmona as well? They were down once and they didn't like it too much. And there's Clothar, he's training too. Okay, so there's a pattern there. Right, and if say we had say on the arrivals, we had got say we've got two arrivals, just for the sake of it, and I'll just pencil that in and then rub it out. We would actually roll do the R on this table. So let's just do a kind of what if, just so I can show you just how it works. We have an adventurer, and then what else? And we have another adventurer. I don't know if that was a bit of a crocky dice, but so 2 adventurers. So we have adventurer, and adventurer. And what we would do is we would do what the background is. In fact, we don't even need to do that just now, because all we have to do is schedule when they will be. So what we will do is roll a 1d8 here, roll a d8. So our first adventure will appear on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. So he will be an arrival. And our second adventure is appearing on Monday. So he's an arrival there. And then what else? We have a 20% chance that they are associated. They're part of a group. So they might have arrived separately. So let's do our first adventure, 20%. No. And our second adventure. Yes. So those two are, by doing both of them, it'll associate with the other one to say that he is, they are linked. I think it's a stretch to say that they have some relationship with any of these. You know, it could, if you were really going to be pedantic about it, you'd say, oh, why, Brian, you know, surely there's a chance that they... But I think I like to just keep it simple, that anybody that's arriving, we've got discrete groups already. We're not going to have more people joining that. So these are linked. It's just he's arrived before him. So that's how that works. And when we come to tomorrow, if this was a real adventure that we had generated, we would start just generating who he is or she is, where it is from, and just like any character, any of one of these guys here, and do the personality, and then we'd have a little interaction check at night. So that was the purpose of that exercise. Again, it's not rocket. This is not rocket science. This is not high tech. This is not groundbreaking. It is just a pragmatic way to deal with the green dragon, and I can do it for next week as well. I've got it all scheduled out. I can be scribbling away on this, do some notes. I've got my threads, my events. If I come over here and I've got like there's a mild breakout of the flu or something like that, I can schedule that in there. I've got the troubadour, I've got the entertainers, I've got any chance of any of these guys doing anything. You know, I've got it all on one sheet of paper, and I just recycle this for when we get to week 4. Okay, right. I'm going to leave that there just now, and what we'll do in the next episode is think about what the characters want to do as far as adventuring. They'll probably want to go back to Dunmorna now. I've also got to do a bit of accounting on their finances and what treasure they've got and how it translates into experience points, and I want to schedule that out and show you my workings on that. So I think I'll do that as my opening for the next video, and then have a think about what we're going to do with the 2 remaining magic items and start an adventure off to Dunmorna again, in the bright March sunshine. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.